Hello, Firestorm. This is Dr. Rasmussen. In this video, we're going to be talking about New Age spirituality and covering some portions out of James Sire's book, The Universe Next Door, Chapter 8. In the Garden of Eden, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, we're told that Satan deceived Adam and Eve with an ancient lie. He said in chapter 3, verse 5, "You will be like God." That is the core of the lie that is at the heart of New Age spirituality. Because the self becomes God. The self regulates the universe, defines reality, and can also define morality, what is right and wrong, the ethics. And so it is a viewpoint that is really kind of slippery. It borrows ideas from many different religions. You'll even see New Age spirituality quote the Bible. But it takes those ideas out of Scripture, away from the Trinitarian and theistic framework within the Bible. And people will talk about Jesus. They'll use all different worldviews to bring in the main ideas of New Age spirituality. I was a big fan of George Lucas and the Star Wars trilogy growing up. And I think that you can draw some parallels to Christianity from Star Wars, but really, truly, it is steeped in New Age thought, as Sire points out. Joseph Campbell and the his whole myth ideas are all through Star Wars. It's also in movies like The Matrix, Avatar, and so we can see this New Age concept of pantheism and the self running through a lot of these movies and impacting our lives. This slideshow covers New Age spirituality and James Sire's chapter 8 in his book, The Universe Next Door. New Age spirituality has an interesting relationship to other worldviews. You can think of it kind of as an amoeba. It changes shapes. It has no definite edges to it. Sire said this on page 180. The New Age worldview is highly syncretistic and eclectic. It borrows from every major worldview, though its weirder ramifications and stranger dimensions come from Eastern pantheism and ancient animism. Its connection with naturalism gives it a better chance to win converts than pure Eastern mysticism. Jumping into worldview questions 1 through 3, prime reality, external reality, and what is a human being, we see these to be comments that are true to this particular point of view. In New Age spirituality, the self is the prime reality. So gone is the idea of God being prime reality. Now we can be incredibly selfish in our viewpoint of the universe. The self is in control of all reality. The self is triumphantly in charge. In a state of God consciousness, a person creates his or her own reality. In essence, I am God. So the nature of external reality, the cosmos, while unified in the self, is manifested in two more dimensions: the visible universe, accessible through ordinary consciousness, and the invisible universe, or the mind at large, accessible through altered states of consciousness. So there we have it, the visible universe. We can access this through our 5 senses. The universe obeys the laws of nature. The invisible universe, we can access this through doors of perception. For example, by taking drugs or meditating, getting ourselves into a trance, or using biofeedback, acupuncture, ritualized dance, other things. So questions 5 and 6 have to do with how do we know things to be true? and then ethics, what is right and wrong, what is our morality. According to New Age spirituality, the core experience is cosmic consciousness, in which ordinary categories of space, time, and morality tend to disappear. Here are some quotes from the book. I experience, therefore it is, or I believe, therefore it is. The new consciousness offers a radical and simple answer to the problem of distinguishing between appearance and reality. There is no distinction. Appearance is reality. The point where someone becomes one with the cosmos is typically called altered states of consciousness or cosmic consciousness. The last stage is going beyond one with the cosmos to going beyond the cosmos and recognizing that the self is the regulator of all reality. So what happens at death? Physical death is not the end of the self, rather the experience of cosmic consciousness. The fear of death is removed. We're not just our body, we are unities beyond our bodies. Our consciousness is what's the most important. So death is just a transition to another form of life. There are three versions of New Age spirituality. The first is the occult. This includes mediums, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, shamans, witch doctors. The use of crystal balls, tarot cards, Ouija boards, trances are used to talk about the other side. This view does not stand in contradiction to the notion that the self is both universe and universe maker. It means that there are beings other than the self. There are other centers of consciousness that can make a claim on one's world. So again, Sire is saying that there are three aspects or manifestations or expressions of the New Age spirituality, and the first is the occult. There's plenty of New Age spirituality all around us. Go up to Sedona, you will see the vortexes, you'll see palm reading, all kinds of expressions of this. The second aspect here is called the psychedelic, and more consistent with worldview question number one than the occult version. It proposes that reality perceived under altered states of consciousness is spun out by the self. Reality is self-generated. Hallucinogens are used to produce psychedelic experiences. So you could take all kinds of drugs to give you experiences. This is, in a way, an expression and a historic development of existentialism. And then third, conceptual relativism, which is very popular in the United States. So there's a radical disjunction between objective reality, what's really out there, and perceived reality, the way we understand that reality by our own interpretations. So in our Western society, we generally conceive of time as a smooth flowing continuum in which everything in the universe proceeds at an equal rate out of a future through the present into the past. Hopi Indians have no such general notion. Their language has no reference to time, either explicit or implicit, and so the New Age conceptual relativists want to do away with Western understandings of time. Why is it possible to know anything at all? Human beings can understand reality because in a state of God consciousness, they directly perceive it. Nonetheless, when New Age teachers present this view to others, they often cite the authority of ancient scriptures and other religious teachers. That's getting back to the amoeba shape of New Age thinking. It will grab and take captive any examples it can find from any worldview, even though that might be contradictory. Most people are unaware of their own divinity. Therefore, it's essential that they go into various states of meditation and consciousness to acquire this knowledge. Most times, Deepak Chopra's work, biblical texts are lifted from their original theistic context and are dropped into the context of an ancient Gnostic or modern New Age worldview. So as believers, we have to be careful because biblical texts can be used to promote non-biblical worldviews. And that's when they're lifted from the context in which they were written. So where is this all going? What's the meaning of human history? The history of the past really has no bearing at all. But cosmic history, which ends with the deification of humanity, especially the individual human self, is seen as a great vision and a great hope. More interested in the experience induced by events than the events themselves. And there's a stream of thought in New Age spirituality that borrows from evolutionary science. And so there's this sense that humanity is evolving into a higher consciousness, that these insights are being spread more and more throughout the globe. And so mankind is going to be deified, and that's our next stage in evolution. So what are the core commitments? New Agers are committed to realizing their own individual unity with the cosmos, creating and recreating it in their own image. The self becomes supreme. And there are some cracks in the new consciousness, shot through with inner inconsistencies. It doesn't even begin to solve the dilemmas posed by naturalistic nihilism or Eastern mysticism. It just ignores them. The notion of a closed universe, how do we really transcend out of that? How do we really truly know anything? Can we determine ethics? They do not have good reasons for ethical beliefs. If self is king, why worry about ethics? The king can do no wrong. I think we have to be aware that in our culture today, it's so pluralistic that we shouldn't give in to pluralism. And the difference is, in a pluralistic society, Christianity continues to proclaim the gospel and the truth in Jesus and the scripture, while there are many other religions around. That's pluralistic. Pluralism is the false idea that Christianity is the same as every other religion, and that there is no difference at all. Pluralism is a belief that all religions are equally right or equally wrong, and it doesn't matter, and Christianity is just one of all of that. And a viewpoint like New Age spirituality is pluralism. It's not pluralistic. It is the belief that all religions can help me. I can take from all of them, and I am my own God. I am the center of my world, and I can speak things into the universe. That is obviously a very egocentric way of living. It's almost like a toddler, a 2-year-old that doesn't learn. They have to work within a universe, and they aren't the center. But it all comes back to that lie that was told in Genesis 3:5. You'll be like God. You can run your own universe your own way. And so when we work with these New Age ideas and feelings, we have to be careful to be compassionate, obviously, as Christians, but also courageous to help people see the truth and to work through those things.